Joint practices with the Denver Broncos are going to start in about 25 minutes. We'll have plenty to react to there. Plus, how the 49ers replaced arguably their weakest link on the offensive line last year. We'll talk about it all on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard Podcast, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera, alongside Johnny Dell from the Johnny Dell's Football Academy. Johnny, we got real preseason football tonight. 3 games. The Niners have a joint practice in less than a half hour. Let's go.
Come on. It is time for real football to be back. It's not just the Hall of Fame game, where you're seeing fourth stringers, fifth stringers rolling out in that second half. This is real deal preseason, as much as real deal preseason can be, but it's the best we have for now. And it is not just pontificating about what could be. It's things that actually start to come to fruition.
Yes, and we are going to talk about everything happening in the joint practice as it happens. We'll be live during the practice, so we'll talk about that, which Kyle Shanahan continues to tell us is more important than the preseason game. So forget about Saturday. What matters today is going to carry a lot of weight with the 49ers coaches. So we'll, of course, break all of that down. Before we do that, before practice actually starts, we wanted to look at the offensive line. What we do on this show, if this is your first time checking us out, we like to look and dive into the film and examine some of the narratives or some of the things the 49ers are saying or doing and see if they hold up, basically. And Johnny luckily can break it down as good as anybody in the business. And we're so grateful to have you, Johnny. Today, we thought we'd look at Ben Bartch because he sort of, without really doing anything, won the left guard competition. He's going to be the guy Chris Forster says it's his job to lose. So what do we have there? Did the Niners actually get better at left guard?
I think they absolutely did. I think when you look at what he was able to do, and Colt McKivitz talked about this when he was in his short presser a few days ago, when he was asked about Ben Bartch and that it's his job to lose. And he said, well, he's been coming along, and then he jumped out of the gate and had such a strong performance in that game against Buffalo, and then was doing really well against Chicago until he had the injury. When I remember watching the Buffalo game and that film, and that was such a disheartening game just overall, because it felt like the breaking point for the 49ers. Like, that broke the team. It broke the fan base. It broke a lot of things. It was like that was the shutting the door and everything. But it was like watching that film and being so frustrated with everything coming out of it, then going, wait a minute. I really like what I see from this kid, Ben Bartch. You knew Aaron Banks was going to be a free agent. What was going to happen there? And I was watching it, and some of the issues that I saw with Aaron Banks throughout the entire season, I wasn't seeing with Ben Bartch. And I was seeing him do things, and I was like, oh, there's something here. And I knew a couple other people were real high on Ben Bartch. And so coming out of that game, I remember by the end of the game, after I watched the film, I was like, I'm sold. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, Ben Bartch, start the rest of the year. I was that high on him coming off of the Buffalo game. And it appears I was not the only one, that the 49ers did feel the same way, that they were expecting that game proved to them that they could let Aaron Banks walk. And so I think they got better through Ben Bartch coming into that role instead of Aaron Banks. And look, Aaron Banks is not a bad player. He went and got almost $20 million a year, but the 49ers looked at it and said, we might even be better and be much more cost effective.
And that's a good combination. If you could get better and cheaper, yeah, we'll sign for that. Just a quick housekeeping note, because it just came across the wire here. The Niners have cut Eli Apple. So we hardly knew Eli Apple because they had to sign defensive lineman Michael Dwumfor. So that is a thing that has taken place. Perhaps it's a good sign for the return of Renardo Green, which is expected next week. So hopefully that means good news in the Niners secondary. But that is a thing that occurred. So we just want to keep you up to date on all of that. Okay. Ben Bartch, baby. Look at that Buffalo film.
Ben Bartch.
No. Oh, my God. That was such a crazy game.
Yeah, and the other part of this, too, is remember, everybody during the game, if you were on social media during the game, everybody was saying Christian McCaffrey finally starts looking like Christian McCaffrey. A lot of that had to do with Ben Bartch. And so we're going to see this. I mean, it sounds crazy. I'm like, oh, you're hyping this guy up. That's really what starts happening here. So we're going to run what's called a split zone. So they're going to act like this is our wide zone, which goes all towards our left, the defense is left, offense is right, and then you're going to cut this back and you're going to bring it up inside. And so what they want to do is they want to wall everybody down. They're going to wall down, and they're going to bring George Kittle to kick out Von Miller on the other side. And so you're trying to get a flow and a kick out, and Christian McCaffrey cutting up inside. Watch what Ben Bartch is able to do on this defensive tackle. One thing we struggled with, especially Aaron Banks, is his movement was coming down. We weren't moving people. A lot of times it was like we'd get one step, maybe half a step, but you weren't moving people. Watch the movement they get on this.
Ooh.
They clear out that whole side. Let's bring him back into half speed because I know everything in NFL speed is so fast. We're going to see this. He gets a little help from Jalen Moore, but look at him hook. I love the sneakiness of the technique here. He engaged, and then he released his left arm, came around and hooked the defensive tackle under his armpit. That's just what they teach these guys to do, is hook and then drive. And the other thing I love is that he's a driver, not a pusher. So he's driving with his legs. He's not pushing with his arms. Pushers tend to hold. They get a lot of holding penalties. They'll get thrown off of them because they get their weight out in front of them too much. Drivers can get guys on the move and keep them on the move. And that's exactly what you see. And this whole side gets washed down, and Christian McCaffrey has a huge hole right through the middle of the defense. I mean, this is gaping, and he's one-on-one with DeMar Hamlin. And so, yeah, this play goes for a big gain because now all of a sudden you let Christian McCaffrey go. He's not getting arm tackled. He's running. He's getting a full head of steam into the secondary. This is what happens. Then you say, well, Christian McCaffrey now looks like Christian McCaffrey. Well, yeah, when you're getting him into the second level without being touched, he's going to look like Christian McCaffrey. And we're going to have a very similar play here as a counter. This counter sift. We saw this last week when we were talking about red zone issues. You're going to drive down, and you're going to bring Pooney across. He's going to kick out. So ignore that. You're going to bring Juszczyk. He's going to come across and lead up in the middle, and Jordan Mason is going to take some counter footwork. It's a little bit different, but a similar idea. You're going to drive down and come back the other side. Again, watch what Ben Bartch does here to the defensive tackle. He's on a down block. This is movement of alignment. Again, same thing. He gets him hooked, and he hooks him and pushes him. This is a movement from here to here on your offensive line. You are moving people in a violent way, getting them hooked out there, and you get these gaping holes that your running backs are able to get up in this area. I mean, this is how you want to draw this up. He hooks him, gets a little bit of help, not much from Jalen Moore, and now you have Mason running through, who's able to run through arm tackles again, and you're dragging people. And this starts looking like 49ers football, right?
Well, and to push the guy 5 yards horizontally is incredible. Now, allow me to be a skeptic here, Johnny, because
be a skeptic.
I feel like it's my nature. It's a blizzard. Okay. The footing for everybody is, it's dicey. How do we know that Ben Bartch isn't just benefiting from the fact that nobody on defense can really get their footing and he's not really as good as he looks?
Well, I will say then the footing is equal for everybody. If you're being the one driving, you have the same lack of footing as the defensive lineman. And so you have that issue. Also, I say, when I look at what Colton McKivitz, Jalen Moore, Jake Brendel were doing, they weren't getting the same kind of push. They weren't getting the same kind of drive. So when you're seeing it as a step above other people, I'm seeing pad level that's good. I'm seeing arm technique that's really good. Things that I wasn't seeing as tight with Aaron Banks. I'm going, okay, that tells me there's really something here, that this is a kid that's been working on his technique, understands the footwork, understands the timing of everything, and to be able to do things he did in the snow. So you're going to see him here. We're going to run a little screen pass. So we're going to run a little fake, roll McCaffrey out, and Bartch is going to come out here and try and lead out. The footwork isn't great, but he's going to get out here and in the snow be able to get up on a linebacker. So you're going to see him right here. Here he goes. Go and get him. And he's able to, in the snow, get him on there. And that's what springs Christian McCaffrey for an 11-yard gain. And you say, okay, Christian McCaffrey starts looking like Christian McCaffrey. The other part is getting to the second level. Aaron Banks was a little bit slower during the year. He wasn't moving as quickly as he was. And Chris Forrester talked about that he was struggling with his weight after the injuries. We consistently struggle getting Aaron Banks up to the second level. He's going to be here. I think that's Kennard. that he's going to get up on the linebacker 43. Watch him be able to, on a wide zone, get up there, get up to him, and drive him out of the hole. And that's what springs Christian McCaffrey. When you're seeing that he's throwing these key blocks that are springing Christian McCaffrey, and you say Christian McCaffrey looks so much better, you say, well, a lot of that had to do with this. Because before this guy was getting in here, we saw that with Aaron Banks, right? We've seen that on some of his clips. He's getting in there. Bartch is able to get up on the second level, drive this out, and you're going to have a big hole right through here for Christian McCaffrey, who reads it well and is able to go up and get another 10, 12 yards. These are chunk plays that we were so used to seeing, and now you're starting to get them. You're going to have another split zone here, so I think you're going to see this defensive tackle shift over right here. So we're going to run a split zone now the other way, and we're going to bring Kittle across. And this is the play that Christian McCaffrey got injured on and nearly went for a touchdown. But watch again, Ben Bartch on this defensive tackle. Just move somebody out of the way and drive. And I love the balance. And it springs Christian McCaffrey for a huge gain. And he was a shoestring tackle away from a touchdown and not being injured for the rest of the year. But again watch Ben Bartch. I love what I see here from an offensive lineman. And the 49ers did too. So we have to remember that this wasn't just me saying, well, and it was in the snow. He was doing these things. Pad level's great.
And the way he's driving and turning his body so that he is literally between the defender and the ball carrier.
Yeah, that's what we mean. Like, footwork is good. He understands the contact point, when to move the feet, get him around. It's not blocking with your hands; it's blocking with your feet. That's what is so important in this one. And again, the ability to get to the second level. We're going to run a wide zone again, this time this way, and watch him get up on Kennard again and drive him out of the space. And they can't get to it in time. Like, it is just, this is what 49ers football looks like when you get this guy on alignment and you drive him out of the play, and now your running back's running free through the secondary and there's no linebackers there, and you're getting these chunk yards. We all said it coming out of that game. Like, this is what 49ers football looks like. This is what they should look like. And you see this. And again, in comparison, I wasn't seeing Aaron Banks get to the second level consistently. I wasn't seeing Aaron Banks walling defensive tackles down consistently. This was stuff that was all I hadn't been seeing from Aaron Banks as much. And I saw from Ben Bartch, and it got me really excited.
It's so frustrating because it's like, yeah, when you have better offensive linemen, your offensive line works better. The offense works better. See, like, why are we always having to count on the Ben Bartches of the world? Like, these reclamation projects on offensive line, look what it can do for the team. But hey, hopefully they did improve. I was so bummed because I saw your breakdowns, and I think John Chapman did some breakdowns too, and you guys were high on Bartch, and I was like, great. I really want to see him out of the snow, because in my head, it's like, it's a factor. I can't say it doesn't mean anything. To me, it is a factor. I would have felt a lot better about Ben Bartch if I could have seen him out of the snow. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and we never really got a chance to do that. So I'm very interested to hear, especially today, like, for example, the joint practice. Broncos have a great defense, a great defensive line. How does he hold up? How does he look? Is he able to do some of the same things that we saw in that Buffalo game? Because, like you just showed, it's massive for this team.
Yeah, and the Bears game, what was so sad about that one is that part of it was the Bears defense was so bad in that game that, like, a lot of the stuff he was doing didn't look very impressive, because it was like, well, most guys should be able to make that block because this guy's just out of position. He was getting a second level block, and the guy runs so far out of the picture. Pooney's getting him as well. Like, they're both getting on this guy, and he's just kind of stuck, and they're getting 15-yard run. You look at that, and I go, okay, I'm not going to show that clip. There's not really anything that makes you go, wow. There wasn't a lot of wow out of the Chicago game because there wasn't the opportunities for them to wow you, because the overall, that Bears defense was pretty bad. And so the play he got injured on was kind of one of those wow, because he was it was part of because of why he got hurt. He was driving his guy so far out of the field that they tripped over Juwan Jennings, who'd gone to the ground. And I mean, he literally just drives this guy backwards. He got to the second level and the linebackers driving him out. The guy trips over Juwan Jennings. They both come down, and then Deebo Samuel falls on top of the back of his ankle. So, that's what you see. But he was doing some of the similar things. It just, the guys weren't as in position as Buffalo's defense.
Lisa's 49ers, thank you so much for the super chat. She says, the Packers made a fine investment in Aaron Banks with a laughing face emoji. Let's just say I was not unhappy when they signed him. I was not worried. I thought it was a massive overpay. Good for you, Aaron Banks. I'm glad you got paid. I like every NFL player getting paid. I was just glad the 49ers weren't the ones that did it. The question with Bartch, Johnny, is, as Filthy Casual says, has he ever played a full season? This is not, a fluke thing with him in terms of injuries. In fact, if you look, he was relatively healthy through his first 4 seasons, but the last 2 years, he hasn't even been able to play in 10 games.
Yeah, and that is a concern with Ben Bartch is, what do you have here? But we also had the similar concern with John Feliciano, I believe. Feliciano had been injured a number of times over in Buffalo, was kind of this reclamation project, came in, and we saw our offensive line performance just spike, right? So sometimes there's guys who've got to be in the right system, in the right place, and they can perform much better than what they were asked to do some other places. But yes, the question is, can he play a full season? We don't know. And, there does come a point when you have to ask the question with certain players, is it really just bad luck? Because we used to hear that about Jimmy Ward a lot. Like, Jimmy Ward was hurt all the time his first 5 years. I mean, it was every stinking 3 months, something was happening with him. And it was always, well, he just seems really unlucky. I remember, I think it was Grant asked the question, because he'd broken 3 bones in 4 years, something like that. He was like, is it a milk issue? I don't understand what he's saying. Like, does he not have enough calcium in his, but in the press conference, is it a milk issue? And I think it was Sala was on at the time, and he was like, I mean, we run all these tests on guys, and he always tests higher than everybody else. And then Jimmy Ward was injury free for 3 years. It's hard to figure that out, and it is hard to say, okay, are all these injuries just bad luck when a guy has just, if you see a consistent pattern in a consistent direction, it's hard to say it's just bad luck.
Right. At some point, it can't be luck. The sample size is too big. I always talk about this with the 49ers injuries in general, because they've been one of the top 10 most injured teams every year of Shanahan's tenure, except one. It's not luck going into year 9. Something is causing this, because it's too big of a window for it to just be random and that coin to essentially keep coming up heads year after year after year. So it's frustrating, and I hope it changes, because I still maintain that if this team gets even average injury luck, just average, they're going to wreck people.
Absolutely. And that's been the most frustrating thing. I know going into, through the 2022 season, through the 2024 season, the 2020 season of injuries, and it's specific injuries at the worst time. Even 2023, you're relatively healthy until John Feliciano gets hurt in the Super Bowl, and Dre Greenlaw tears his Achilles in the Super Bowl. I mean, those were 2 massive injuries that happen in the game where it matters most and cost you in the worst moments, because after Dre Greenlaw goes out, Travis Kelce starts going off on the 49ers and just dicing the defense up. When John Feliciano goes down, you have the most important play at the end of the game, where Spencer Burford allows a guy to come through where he wasn't supposed to allow him. And the only way we knew is because John Feliciano was hungover after the game and let everybody know.
Yep.
But yeah.
That was just devastating. Or George Kittle getting injured to the point where he could not catch a pass at the end of the Super Bowl. We have that audio of him telling Kyle Shanahan, I wouldn't throw me the ball. Just devastating.
And they put Braden Willis in right after he got hurt, and he immediately commits a holding penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just those things that hit you at the absolute worst time. God, this is bringing up bad memories.
Sorry, I feel like you started it. Tanisha,
I probably did.
YouTube channel member, shout out to all our YouTube channel members, says, good morning, Rob and Johnny. Happy birthday to me, as well as happy 8/7 Dwight Clark Day. Tanisha, happy birthday. Always appreciate all your support. I see you in all the streams. Hope you're doing something special. I'm a big birthday guy. I like when people make a big deal out of my birthday. I always like to do something big. Last year, I went down to Texas and hung out with Michelle Majuk, who hosts with me on Fridays for my 40th birthday. My wife and I went down. I'm a huge birthday guy, so happy birthday, Tanisha.
I will say my wife, it was like 11 years ago, I think. She went to a very large grocery chain. I cannot say whom because they swore us to silence. She went there to get me a birthday cake for a big surprise party. And she said, I wanted you to do it like 49ers colors. And that's all she said. And she went to pick it up, and the manager comes out and he says, look, I'm going to give you this cake, but you cannot tell anybody where you got it or that you bought it from us. Like, you cannot, I don't want to see any pictures on social media of this happening because they didn't have logos licensed, and whoever was the cake decorator didn't realize that. And when it came out, it was covered in 49ers logos and everything. I was like, this is the greatest birthday cake ever. I mean, they had player numbers on there. It must have been a 49ers fan who did it. And it was like the greatest birthday cake that I can never share with people. But yeah, but did you see Steph Sanchez just posted that Nick Bosa is back in uniform and ready to go for today's joint practice?
Oh, yeah. You absolutely love to see that. I saw John Chapman tweeted that CJ West, Kalia Davis, Michael Williams, and Dallas Flowers are working with the ones today. That's interesting. Look, Kyle Shanahan wants to see things in these joint practices. So it's interesting that he's thrown CJ West and Michael Williams out right away. And I like it, Johnny. Throw these rookies into the fire, sink or swim.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, let's see him, especially CJ West. Like, you can feel like, they're trying to tamp down they want the fire still behind him of saying, you need to grow and you need to go. You have a long ways to go. So don't settle. But it is clear right now that he is in the pole position for one of the starting defensive tackle spots. And I mean, that was something that we had talked about during the CJ West video, that there's a lot of good tape on him. I know I'm not the only guy. I know you talked to some people who've said CJ West, that watch out for this kid. The video I put out that was a full length edited video, I talked about it. Is he the steal of the draft? And he may be. So that's really fascinating. He's running with the ones.
If you're watching on the stream right now, you could see our old friend. Since we're talking offensive line on today's show, Mike McGlinchey, there he is in Denver. I think that people don't give the 49ers enough credit. They let Mike McGlinchey go. He gets a massive contract from the Broncos. They replace him with Colton McKivitz, and McKivitz has replaced McGlinchey. He's done a very good. Last year, he was very solid. By all reports, he actually looks like he might even be a little better this year. And they replaced McGlinchey for a fraction of what he got paid from Denver.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the biggest thing, is that you got him for a fraction of the price. And I have not seen a huge change in performance from McGlinchey to McKivitz. So, I mean, something about those Mick guys. They just really need to have a McRib in there as a right tackle at some point.
There you go. We'll take your money, McDonald's.
Looks like Dre Greenlaw is not practicing today for the Broncos. And that was one reason we let him go, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were concerned about the injury. And I know he got banged up relatively quickly with Denver, I don't think it was an Achilles thing, but it's just unfortunate to see. Obviously, Nick Bosa, if you're watching on the stream, you could see gave some love to Hufanga. Of course, Hufanga, Greenlaw, DJ Jones. There's a bunch of former 49ers hanging out in Denver. Kyle Shanahan talked about that, how he's looking forward to just seeing the people that used to be on this team. But this is going to be a great test for the Niners today.
Yeah. I mean, Denver is a very well-rounded team. I mean, they've got a strong offense with a number of weapons and a good O-line. Not a great O-line, but a good O-line that's going to be a good test for the defensive line. They've got a defense that is really phenomenal. I mean, they have who I think is the best corner in the league. The guy that I was pounding the table for in 2021 was like, everyone wanted a different quarterback, and I get why. I was just sitting there going, yeah, but this may be the best corner to come out in like 5 years. Is going to be sitting there right around 12. I wanted Patrick Surtain. But Patrick Surtain's there, and he's going to give a great challenge to Ricky Pearsall. He's going to give a great challenge to Jordan Watkins, who's been making a lot of buzz, who we looked at his film and saw kid's got speed for days and deep speed. And so it's no surprise that he's getting some of these deep plays down the field. It's going to be really fascinating to then have him have to go against an absolute technician at corner.
Yes, it's going to be one of the things that I most want to hear about is how does Ricky Pearsall do? Because I keep talking about it. It's just check the box, right? Okay, I can believe you look as good as people say if you can go out against really good competition and do it, even if it's just a practice. That's okay. But if you can keep that up, then I really start to believe in what people are saying. There was a question here for you. Did I star it? Yes. Lee Ving asked, is our offensive line depth better or worse than last season, Johnny?
I think on paper, no. In reality, yes. And what do I mean by that? Like on paper, you had John Feliciano there. You had Aaron Banks, you had Spencer Burford, you had Jalen Moore. And so on paper, yes. In reality, those guys ended up not being able to be there all the time either. Spencer Burford got banged up. Jalen Moore got got banged up. John Feliciano couldn't get back in time and retired. So if those guys, if you say, okay, on paper, those guys 100%, yes, we had better depth last year, but in reality of what you could actually get to the field and stay on the field, I think right now this season is projecting to have a little bit more offensive line depth.
I do think it's funny that people talk about offensive line depth. You know who has offensive line depth? Like nobody. Like, it's not like teams are loaded with too deep at every offensive line position. I mean, Jalen Moore just got like $15 million from the Chiefs. He couldn't even start for the 49ers last year. And everybody thinks the Niners offensive line was horrible and he couldn't even crack that line up. Yet the Chiefs are saying, hey, we want you to come and help protect Patrick Mahomes and we'll give you $15 million a year to do it. So the idea that like the Niners have an offensive line that is so much thinner than everybody else's, I don't really know if that's totally accurate.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's kind of like quarterback depth. Like who has the best quarterback depth room? Well, nobody has a lot of quarterback depth. There's a reason why QB number twos are QB number twos generally. And so, yeah, offensive line is a premium position, and it's a premium position that's getting harder and harder to hit on out of the draft. I remember looking back at this last year's tackle draft. I had a long back and forth with somebody on social media about it because they're like, the 49ers should have grabbed a tackle in this draft. And I said, okay, which player are you booting off of this draft class, and what tackle are you adding on? It can't just be a hypothetical. You have to grab a tackle. Which one? Because I looked at the tackle class and I was not impressed. I was kind of going, for what the 49ers do, the guy that I felt I was highest on, but I went, there's no way with his injury history, the 49ers go after him was Josh Simmons. Because watching his tape, I was like, this is the guy that fits their system better than any of the other tackles that are out there that can do a lot of things that I'm not seeing. They're going, there's not a major need for growth in this area. Josh Connerly, I felt like had the movement skills, but was just not a great pass protector. And I'm going, I don't think you're going to get an upgrade over Colton McKivitz there. I didn't see one in this draft. So, when you look at the offensive line, just generally coming out of college, it's not great. It just really isn't most years. And so there's a handful of guys who are coming in and making a big impact. Dominic Puni being one, and the 49ers got one. They got it. What is a rarity coming out of college anymore.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Zakelgistan.
Yeah. Tony Nagatani, YouTube channel member, says, don't go to sleep on Nick Zakel. I'm the president of Zakelistan. That's it actually does kind of sound like it could be a real place. Chris Forster has talked about essentially how difficult it is to find offensive linemen in the draft. And I kind of think that they have sort of switched up their strategy when it comes to offensive linemen, Johnny. I think they're like, hey, if there's a great one, we'll draft him. But if not, instead of trying to sort of guess in college where almost no teams run the scheme that the 49ers do, at least in terms of the ground game, they look across the NFL where almost all the teams run some sort of elements of the Shanahan playbook. And they say, okay, who are the offensive linemen that we could get from other teams? Who are the guys that are getting released or maybe that we can give up a late round pick for that we have seen at the NFL level running the same type of concepts that we ourselves run? And I sort of think they do their offensive line scouting that way. And that's how we end up with an Austin Pleasance, a Ben Bartch, those type of people, and they think that that's sort of a safer way to go about it.
And I mean, even going back to, I want to say it was John Feliciano, wasn't it, that they brought him over because of it was Brunskill. Brunskill had spoken really highly of him, and Kyle Shanahan loved Brunskill, and then Brunskill was like, what we do as an offensive line, he can do that. And so sometimes there's word of mouth in there among just even the offensive linemen they bring in, guys that they've worked with, say, what we're asking you guys to do, and what the skill set is for that. Can this guy do that? Oh man, love it seeing McCaffrey there. DJ Jones, I miss DJ Jones. I'm really
So
pulling for CJ West to be them.
This team misses DJ Jones too. And it's funny because CJ West and DJ, like there's been a lot of comparison there with the two players, with Saleh calling CJ West a fire hydrant. And that was sort of DJ Jones also kind of has that sort of stocky build. I hope that we just, let these guys be themselves and don't constantly compare them to the guys that were there. But you're right. I do miss DJ Jones.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that becomes hard is we look at, okay, we don't differentiate between role and player. So Eric Armstead played a role, and he played that role really well. So when we see Michael Williams coming into the same role, we say they're trying to replace Eric Armstead. No, they're trying to fill a certain role, and Eric Armstead could do that role really well. Michael Williams might even do that role better. It's the same role, but that's why they remind you of the same player, because they're being asked to do really similar things. It's not that they're trying to make him Eric Armstead. And that's why he says, I don't like to bring comparisons, because I don't want to, say that we're trying to make him in the mold of Eric Armstead. They're trying to have him fill a role. Eric Armstead may have had a deficiency that we didn't notice because we didn't know exactly what Robert Saleh was asking him to do. That says, okay, Michael Williams could do that even better. Same with CJ West. He's filling that DJ Jones role. Alfred Collins is filling a role that they have, and D Winters is filling a linebacker role. That's why they remind you of these certain players.
Right.
And there's certain metrics that they look for in these roles. They look for height, weight with linebacker. Dre Greenlaw and D Winters are like identical height, weight. Same with their speed. They want guys who can move a certain way, and they have these sort of things. So, that's what they really like. And it is fun to watch. And CJ West is one, like, I see that, I go, he's playing the DJ Jones role, but I think he has potential. He's going to do it differently than DJ Jones did, but he has potential to be even more disruptive in the run game than DJ was.
Tony Nagatani says, I want the Niners to give McKivitz a 3-year extension during the season and not let him hit free agency. Great. Like, it's so funny to see that comment, which I understand what you're thinking is, Tony, but I remember 2 years ago when we were running Colton McKivitz out of town, and now we're giving him a 3-year extension.
It's crazy how different things look at it. And I'm not necessarily against it. I'll be honest. I'm not, because we don't know how much tread Trent Williams has left on his tires. And so I'm of the viewpoint that you don't create a hole until you know what your holes already are. You don't poke a new hole in the boat until you're sure that you've plugged all the holes on the boat first, or else you're going to make things even worse for yourself. So if you have a Colton McKivitz there, the question is you have to ask is, do you think with the other pieces around you that with Colton McKivitz as your right tackle, can you win a Super Bowl? If your answer is yes, you hold on to him until you have somebody better. It isn't that you aren't willing to upgrade him. It's that you go, well, maybe if I can move the needle more on our team, and that's the question for me in the draft. What moves the needle more? A right tackle that might be a 10% upgrade on Colt McKivitz, or a defensive end who's going to be a 300% upgrade over Leonard Floyd? Well, the bigger needle mover is your defensive end. And I think that's what has to go into every position. And so until you have a big needle mover over there that you can get, you don't let him out of the building.
I agree. And I think that's exactly, the Niners have basically said that's sort of their position, right? These skill guys that they have been taking instead of offensive linemen, in their opinion, have an opportunity to move the needle more than random offensive linemen you want the team to take just because he plays a position of need for the team. I thought this picture was interesting, Johnny. This is Rob Lauder, who tweeted out a picture from the joint practice. Now, I don't know if he's with the writers or if he's where the fans are sitting, but I do know he is very far away from the action. You can see it if you're watching the stream. And Tim Kawakami and Matt Barrows have talked about this, how they're literally bringing binoculars because they have people so far away with the new orientation of the practice fields. That is rough to be able to see from that spot.
Oh, that hurts my heart. I'm sitting here. I'm like, what they really need to do. What I want to see is a camera set up with a 24 or with, just a live stream of the practice. That's what I want to see. They won't ever do that. But yeah, it's sad.
You say that, but I don't know if you saw this week or maybe it was last week. I can't remember, but there was a practice or like a scrimmage that the Packers did, and they streamed the whole thing on the internet. People had the entire video. The throws that Jordan Love was making were going around Twitter. Like, they put it out there, and it was like, yes, like, we don't have to keep this stuff under lock and key. It doesn't have to be, like a state secret. So I would love if the 49ers did something like that, because we would have a field day.
Absolutely. I would be eating that stuff up. I'd be sitting there, trying to explain like exactly what they're doing in there in the practice reps, like what's going on. I mean, we aren't going to know everything because we don't have the sheets of what exactly they've planned out. I just look at it and I go, I don't necessarily know why you wouldn't, in the sense that it's not like in this game they're going to be sitting there running a bunch of stuff that, is like game plan specific. These aren't state secrets that everything is going to be running. And most teams understand that with practice. Like, these are not state secrets. This is installs of just your base stuff that then is the basis of everything goes forward. So I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of people that are going to be like, yes, we got an hour of one training camp practice. We now have cracked the Shanahan code.
Right. I mean, he's the one that always talks about, like, he doesn't have a green playbook like in the Waterboy movie with all his secrets. And if anybody ever got it, he would not be able to do anything. Like, he's the one that always talks about that. Yesterday's practice, there were like whispers, of Robert Sala's doing some really creative things, and I don't want to talk about it. And Steph Sanchez, who was at the practice, came on with Jason Aponte and was like, I'll tell you what he was doing. And it was all cool stuff. It was, crazy stunts with the defensive line up front. It was having like 3 or 4 safeties on the field at once and blitzing the heck out of Brock Purdy, which got a couple of would-be sacks. Like, and I think the theme on the show was like, they know the reporters are there at practice. They wouldn't run the stuff they really don't want you to see with the reporters there. So, like, we don't have to treat it like it's the launch codes here.
No, it's not. And I mean, we're getting into the time of camp where they're starting to install a lot of their rush packages. So, that's where we also have to take everything to, like, this isn't popping, this isn't happening. We're not seeing this from the pass rush until you get the full installs in, because it sounds like they had installed all base, and now they're getting to the exotic packages, exotic looks, and situational third down, because they move on this in your 3-step drop, your 5-step drop, and on defense they do the same thing. Like, here's our base fronts, and here's our base for coverages behind that, and now we're going to run into situational fronts, situational coverages, and now we're going to have the mixing of those. And so they install these in piecemeal over the entire training camp. And that's what you're starting to get now, is you're getting into the situational, like deep situational. You're looking at 3rd and 6 plus, 3rd and 10 plus. Now you're getting into those sorts of rush packages. And so that's where things start looking really, really cool. And you're going to have, we have these against 3 wide receiver sets, 4 wide receiver sets, empty, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to look really exotic. And that's what's fun to see, because I felt like last year, Nick Sorensen was just behind on all that. It just felt like that really didn't show up until the 3rd preseason game. And then there wasn't anything more. And even what showed up in the 3rd preseason game didn't exist in the regular season. And it was just so vanilla. It was like they just never got to that deep situational football sort of installs at any point during the season. And that carries into why you are the worst 4th quarter scoring defense in the league.
I completely agree with everything you said. Sorensen was in nickel literally 80% of the time last season, and he rushed for 80% of the time. Like, think about that. From an offensive coordinator perspective, That's great to hear. Like, I'm going to know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly how many you're rushing, and I'm going to bet, that that's what you're going to be in. And more often than not, I'm going to be right. And I'm going to be able to manipulate you, and I'm going to be able to move the ball against you. And we saw it. The 49ers were outscored by 94 points in the second half last year, including by 77 points in the fourth quarter alone. Teams knew exactly what they were going to get on defense against the 49ers, and they knew exactly how to hurt us, and they did it again and again and again.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was just like, it came down to, you were so predictable in the fourth quarter and that just comes down to situational. 4-minute defense was terrible. So those are the kind of last installs of the week. It just felt like everything throughout the weeks were always behind schedule. Everything was behind schedule is what it felt like. Because when you look at the situations, third and long is some third and long, and then 4-minute and 2-minute defense are your kind of last situationals that you installed during the week. And so when those are really deficient, that does point to you are not getting as detailed because you're rushing the end of the week installs. So you're not as ahead of the A ball. And that kind of, when you kind of put that together with some of the things that Shanahan has said, and he's trying not to say things, you can kind of put it together that Sorensen was just really struggling coordinating everybody and the installs and getting everybody on schedule for when things needed to be installed.
I think it was clear last season that Sorensen was over his skis. He was put in a position that he wasn't ready for. He had never been a defensive coordinator before. Bosa said it earlier this year that Robert Saleh's commanding presence in the meeting room was, quote, something we needed, was exactly what he said. Like, he threw that out there. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear at this point that the Niners have made a massive, massive upgrade. I keep waiting for them to do something in this practice, Johnny, and it looks like a lot of padding right now.
It's a lot of individual drills that most people can't see most of the individual drills. And so, we're not getting the one-on-ones and stuff, which is frustrating. I want to see Christian McCaffrey cooking their linebackers in one-on-one pass coverage. I want to see Ricky Pearsall versus Surtain. We're not getting it. We're not getting the views. We're just seeing the Broncos offensive line going against their offensive line in some drills and things like that. I'm like, come on. I just need something here.
I want to see the juicy stuff. Right. They'll get to it eventually. Sorry, I'm just looking in the chat. People are, Filthy Casual says, didn't the Eagles only rush 4 and have no blitzes during the Super Bowl? Well, if you have a defensive line like the Eagles had, yeah, maybe you can get away with that. But other than Nick Bosa last year on the defensive line for the Niners, they weren't getting pressure with 4.
Yeah, and it comes down to, what is your defensive philosophy? That's always been Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, when he couldn't even he didn't even have a lot of great defensive linemen, was still rushing 4. That's just his MO. That has always been Fangio's MO. That has been his MO as long as he's been coaching, since the early 80s in the Dome Patrol defense. That's Vic Fangio. He believes in 7-man coverage. There's different ways you can look at this, that guys will look at things. Okay, how do you get the offense off the field on third down, and how do you disrupt things for a quarterback? Fangio is very much, we're gonna give the same presentation every single defense. We're going to make that quarterback work post snap. We're going to do that by certain coverage checks versus certain releases. It is a very complex scheme for the back end. It is very complex for that. And you have to have players that can understand that. You have to have coordinators that can, or position coaches that can teach it. And Fangio has been teaching this for a very long time. Then you need a disruptive front to really make that click. They want to then give their front that 2.5 seconds with the way that they change things. Saleh started out kind of that way, and then Saleh's kind of morphed into this hybrid where it's, I'm gonna make you work post snap, but I'm also going to be able to use my front to manipulate your slides, manipulate your protections to get some free rushers, so that when we bring 5, we're going to have 6 to cover your 5, and we're going to take away your hots, and your quarterback's going to be forced to make tight window throws under pressure. And that's what they're going to say. Or we're going to rush 4. and we're going to make your quarterback work post snap, and then we're going to take away everything, at this point and make your guys earn it after the catch, and we're going to have physical tacklers. That's kind of what they do. It's just a little bit different of a way to go about it. But, just because one guy has a lot of success one way doesn't mean other ways aren't successful. Vic Fangio and Spagnuolo are very different in the way that their defenses run and their approaches, but they're both phenomenal. Should be in consideration for the Hall of Fame as far as what they've done to the game, but they go about it very different ways. It doesn't mean that one way is necessarily better than the other.
Waiting for more news from the 49ers joint practice underway right now with the Denver Broncos. I got an email from Joey Cortez, who sent me a note, and it was a good point that he brought up. And he said, one thing I'm wondering about is I haven't heard much on Bryce Huff lately. Is he getting any buzz in camp? Is he playing well? I know a lot of the buzz has been on Michael Williams and the possibility of getting him reps, but I think people might be sleeping on the fact that Huff has a lot of potential as an edge rusher. He's kind of right. I feel like when the trade first happened, we were hearing about Bryce Huff, and then now I haven't heard anything about him, Johnny. That's definitely something today that I would love to hear. Like, please give me a little Bryce Huff was cooking the Broncos offensive line, because, we all think that he may be better this year because he's back with Robert Saleh, but, we want to have a little proof of concept here.
Absolutely. You want to hear, that first step is lethal, and you want to hear that speed he's bringing off the edge is causing fits for this tackle or that tackle. You want to hear that because that's his bread and butter. That is his tool. Like, he doesn't have a lot of different tools. The one tool he has is supposed to be really, really, really good. So you want to see that. And you can see it on some of his tape, but you want to start hearing that buzz a little bit. You want to hear something that it is coming about. And when it doesn't, it does make you kind of go, I hope there's nothing wrong there.
Yes, please. Because if you can put, like, at one point, Saleh had Bosa and Michael Williams on one side of the defensive line, and then he had Bryce Huff on the other. And I was like, yeah, like, holy hell. Like, that sounds like it could be devastating. But of course, it only works if Bryce Huff can be that speed rusher coming around the edge.
100%. Like, that is the thing, that the engine that will drive the car is having somebody who can be a speed rusher to force tackles off their spot and win at that 7-yard depth. If you don't have a guy who can win at that 7-yard depth, it makes everything harder. So, we want to see that. We want to see is somebody winning around the edge. Like, even when an offensive tackle knows it's coming, can you win at that point?
They have the potential, if these defensive linemen are as good as we are hoping they could be, to do some really creative things on the front and really get back to a place where they are dictating to the offense. I felt like last year on defense, it was always us kind of huddled up in a corner saying, please don't hurt us. Like, I didn't feel like we were ever intimidating the other offense or forcing them to do anything.
I think that's a really good way to put it. We're just in the corner, huddled up, saying,
yes,
please, just take it easy for a second. We need this game. I think the second Seattle game would be a perfect example of that. It just was like, oh, just stop for 1 minute. Just let us catch our breath. Just uncle for a minute.
Please don't do bunch formation and get a first down on 3rd and 6 like every team has done against us all year long.
Yeah. It was fascinating to watch Rock Ya-Sin out there playing in the Hall of Fame game when he was a guy who was getting significant snaps for the 49ers last year.
Right. If you're out there getting significant time in the Hall of Fame game, things have gone awry for you in your football career. Let's just say that. I mean, Trey Lance played like the whole game, or at least 2 quarters. He was out there for major minutes, and we all know how his career has gone to this point. So yeah, that it's telling. And it's telling that hopefully the 49ers are not going to have that problem this year, because I think there is a chance, Johnny, that Lenore, Green, and Upton Stout could be a very solid cornerback trio. And there are not a lot of teams in the NFL that have 3 solid corners.
No, I mean, it is extremely rare. And that slot position for us is so vital in the run game. We ask those slot players to fill in the C gap a lot, which means they've got to fill in between a tackle and a tight end. That is a physical position. Lenore was phenomenal at that. He was as physical as anybody. You'd see him just stick his nose in there and get that. But he's also, what's rare about him is that he can do that and be a very good outside corner, a very good outside corner. And so you want somebody to be that outside corner where it allows you to not have to give help with your safeties to the outside. You can keep your safeties in and you can really take away the entire middle of the field. And you can say, you will not run on us. We're going to be able to take everything here. But you can't lose his physicality in the slot. And that's the thing with Upton Stout that is so, I guess, exciting or for me, encouraging to hear is that Robert Saleh came out and said he's got some violence to him. And I think when I put on the film, I only saw one game because the only game I had was their game against Alabama. They lost like 63-7, but it was very clear that he belonged on the field with Alabama. Nobody else on Western Kentucky's defense did. Like he was supposed to be there. Not Western Kentucky. That was Siegel. Anyways, that he belonged on that field with Alabama and wasn't afraid to get in there, stick his nose in, make physical tackles against those great running backs that Alabama just seems to produce every year. But to see, okay, that's happening here. And it happens when they put the pads on. I want to see the next step, show it in this joint practice. I want to hear something about you, getting in there, making a tackle, because you do that. You let Lenore be out there. Renardo Green was already really good last year. Don't pull an Avery Thomas and sit on your laurels and have that slide in your second year, or a Kello Witherspoon where you come back and everybody's burning you and whatever. Ascend the way you should go, the way that we see you should go. And you really are talking about one of the best, like, three corners, groups in the league. And I know that may sound like we're being a little homeristic, but there is just, I've seen over the last 5-6 years, I feel like corner play just as groups among teams has been declining. Like, you don't see that really strong. This team has two outstanding corners. You don't see that as much anymore.
I completely agree with you. And you haven't seen it on the 49ers in quite some time. So that would be very refreshing. God, what do you think it was like for the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers to go in to start their season against Alabama? Like, all right, here we go. We're going to play Alabama. They know they're going to get smashed in the face. Like, there is no question about it. And of course, they went out and lost 63-0. Of course, they won 31-0 the next week over Eastern Kentucky. So I don't know, maybe that helped.
Yeah. I mean, it was something like, and watching the tape, I was sitting there going, man, like a lot of times they'd bring him on a slot blitz and they would run off the other side. They bring Stout on a slot blitz. They run either quarterback power or running back off the other side, and he'd be running them down, but it would be like, not quite in time because they'd be a 50-yard touchdown run off the other side because the other side just got blown off the ball. And it was, it was hard to see, but you'd look for those moments. Okay, when they're running at him, what happens? And he'd take on those blockers and he would fight and he would get in there and he was physical. I was like, okay, I can see what they liked. And because a game like that is going to show you. And do you do that through the fourth quarter? You're down 63-0 and you're still getting in there and making a hard physical tackle that says this is a kid who's going to fight at any moment and play his rear end off.
Just taking a peek as to what's going on at the joint practice. Brandon Aiyuk is still out there on the field in the mix with the wide receivers. John Lynch was on KMBR this morning and said that there is still no timetable for Brandon Aiyuk, but they keep talking about week one, like, oh, I don't think he's going to be out there week one, but maybe I'll be surprised. It's like, how can it be both? How can there be no timeline for him, but also you're totally not ruling out week one?
Yeah. I don't know. It's so I had Coach Desi on shortly after Aiyuk had his injury and it was revealed, it was the trifecta. And we had looked at the data on what it is with professional athletes returning after that, unlucky triad that you get with the torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus. MCL is the lightest of all those because they don't even do surgery to repair it. It's usually scar tissue, let it scar tissue over, and then rehab it out. The biggest thing is you're waiting to rehab that out until the ACL reconstruction and the healing from that. But that with all of that, the timeline for return normally is 12 months to return to play, and then what we call PIP or pre-injury performance, return to PIP is at 14 to 15 months. So realistically, you'd expecting Aiyuk to be back to pre-injury performance around January of next year. So if he's even like 20% ahead of schedule, he's probably still not at PIP until November, October, like late October. So I think that's why they're talking about there's no timetable. He could ostensibly return to play in September, but if they're looking in and saying, we have a stocked room that we like a lot, that we don't have to rush you back, we can wait until you're at 95%. They're going to do that. I think that's might be what's playing into some of that. That's just my thought.
I thought that was an interesting answer from Lynch. He also was asked directly, like, are you guys working on a new contract for Jauan Jennings? And he didn't answer. He didn't say yes or no. He said, well, we're going to keep that private, but we love Jauan Jennings, was essentially what he said, which, is interesting because you would think that maybe they would want to get a deal done, but maybe they've looked at these receivers and Pearsall and Jordan Watkins, and maybe they're like, you know what? If Jauan is not going to hold out and not going to, force the issue, maybe we just play this thing out and see what we end up with by the end of the year.
Yeah, it is really fascinating because most of the time that's not Lynch's MO when he's asked about contracts. Lynch is always we love this guy as a player. He's working his tail off. He's getting better day by day. We're working towards finding a solution. We love what he brings as a 49er. We want him to be a part of the team for a long time. We think he's a heck of a football player. Like, you hear all that kind of stuff. That is his MO. And you didn't hear that this time. That does make you wonder, like, is he just got his mind on other things? I don't think so. I think there's something in there, and Shanahan's asked about, does the calf have anything to do with the contract negotiations? Well, you have to ask Jauan about that. I mean, calves it's showing up. I don't know. It just make you wonder, are they starting to say, hey, Jauan, this does kind of follow 49ers MO. When somebody tries to put the screws to them, they try and put the screws back, is generally Parag's way of operating, and same with John.
And you know what? I get it. If with your 49ers, like, hey, Jauan, we just took care of you last year. Remember? Like, we it's not like we don't appreciate everything, but we did that once already. Now we're going to let it play out. And they drafted, I think it's like 4 wide receivers in the last 2 years, something like that. They didn't do that by accident. They did it for a reason. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Niners Broncos practice is underway now. I was hoping we would get a little more, juice, basically, things to react to while we were live on the air, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. You saw the film breakdown earlier. That's what we do here every Thursday on the show. Once the games start, including this weekend, we'll have actual tape to break down. We will go through, we will look at the narratives. What are people saying? Is that actually what took place? I know a lot of times for me on Sunday, I think one thing is going on. And then when we dive back into the actual game tape, a lot of the times I find out it was something different than what I thought. So that's what we're going to provide on this show for you every Thursday. If you want even more film breakdown, please subscribe to the Johnny Dale Football Academy on YouTube. It has all the breakdown you could possibly want. I'm grateful that you loan us your expertise once a week here, Johnny. We do appreciate it. But everybody go check out that channel as well. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you next week.